I think I'm gonna do it this one. So, can you get those guys that are coming, have them come in here?
Steve, can you read?
Hmm?
Can you read my clip?
Okay, Brandon, this all yours. The group, you may see people walking in the background just like at a clubhouse.
Okay.
We got a lot of people that are interested in hearing your story. We're
Right.
recording it, and afterwards we'll send it to you.
Okay.
And I got your information about giving your story, then having a question and answering period at the end.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve. Okay. So I'll just give a quick little introduction. My name is Brandon Burbank, and I'm born and raised from Whatcom County, Bellingham, Washington. At the age of 19, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so I'm 28 years old now, and I've had to learn how to basically create a life that is sustainable and healthy so that I can be a happy individual and live a happy and healthy lifestyle. And so I have my certification peer-to-peer counselor from the state of Washington State Healthcare Authority. And in today's message, I'm going to try and give you all a better viewpoint of different parts of my story with what I've been able to experience relating to mental health. And in these parts of my speech, I'm going to talk about what these points have helped me to learn about myself, as well as how to better manage my bipolar disorder condition, and ultimately living a happier and healthier life. And so my journey is definitely very long and hard. And ever since I was diagnosed with this condition, I've gone through so many challenges with my mental health. The points that I'm going to cover in today's speech includes sleep, and I'm going to talk about how I learned from my own experiences, how I learned how important it is to have sleep when you have a diagnosis, as well as just being a human in general. The next point I will cover is exercise. I'll talk about how specific areas in my life where I put myself out there and continued to do something active for my physical health that in turn has given me more clarity, confidence, and awareness to recognize that I can have balance in my life. The next point that I will cover is medications. Now, I know that depending on the audience, depending on the person and their story and what they've been through, medications is a very stigmatized topic. However, I'm going to be vulnerable with you all today and say that, and I'll basically give you some experiences of what I've gone through with the medication process in order to maintain my bipolar disorder diagnosis, and how important that was for me in my own recovery to be sustainable and have wellness in my life. And the final point that I will cover is the connection with others. I will talk about how important that is and how I've learned over the years of challenge with isolation, really trying to work on my socializing skills with others that has really in turn given me more opportunities to engage with others on a healthy level so that I can have positive and healthy friendships so that I can grow and live a happy life. Okay, I'm going to take you back now to when I was 19 years old. I was just returning home from studying abroad in Barcelona, Spain, and I was going through a lot of my first manic episode, which lasted me a total of 6 months. I vividly remember laying in my bed and it's 2 a.m. and I'm wide awake. I'm struggling to sleep. I'm tossing and turning. I decide to put on some music to help soothe my brain, to soothe my mood and my condition with what I was experiencing, because at this time I was very lost. I was very in this bed while I was trying to go to sleep. I was processing and really contemplating how I wanted to save the world, how I wanted to be a person to really be like a savior to help change the world in a positive way. And while I was struggling with this, my sleep was continuing to down spiral. And that really started to take effect into the things that I was doing with my everyday life, including school. My performance in school was low. I was not being able to function at a high level with my peers and with my studies because I was losing sleep. This process was so ongoing and there was so much instability in my life that things continued to get worse and worse. And my parents were really worried about me and trying to figure out ways to help me. I remember a time during this time period of when I was 19 years old, when I decided that I needed to go out and let go of some energy, and I decided to go for a run. It was it was winter time in Bellingham, Washington, and I lace my shoes up and go for a run in Northridge Park here in Bellingham, and I start running. And during this exercise, I start screaming at the top of my lungs with anger and frustration because of the uncertainties that I was feeling and experiencing in my life at this moment. The the amount of lostness and just uncertainty with how I was processing my life as things continued to down spiral was overwhelming for me. And so this run was kind of like a, a turning point where I started to realize, what do I need to do to get out of this situation where I felt like I was misunderstood, um, just really at a loss of words. And so during this run, I proceeded to going into Whatcom Falls Park, and I walked into a public restroom where I paused and just high with emotions and frustration and anger. I started staring into the mirror and decided to scream some more just to really get my feelings out there because I felt so unstable. Little did I know, now as I've been able to reflect, this was a time period when I was going through my first manic episode. And that manic episode was a total of 6 months until I was then put into the hospital. At that 6 month period, I I remember a knock on the door, and then my dad opens the door, and two Bellingham Police Department officers walk into my home, and my parents did the best things that they could have ever done to support me. Little, even though I didn't want the help at that time, they allowed the officers to come in and let them know that their son is having a mental health crisis that has been ongoing for so many months, and it was not in a place to where it was going to improve. I sat down and the officers started just asking me some questions and were being very patient with me until we then came to the conclusion that I would drive myself to the psych ward. And the police officers escorted me there. And that was the beginning of my journey where I ended up being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was unsure of this diagnosis, and for many years ongoing, it's taken me many years to accept this diagnosis. Transitioning to another point about how a part of my recovery is really filled with the importance of having physical exercise. It's November of 2022. So I've had a lot of experience with this diagnosis and my journey, but I've still been going through lots of challenges with my own mental health. I was homeless in Bellingham, Washington, as I recently had moved back to Bellingham from living in Long Beach, California for over 2 years, and then Seattle for about 10 months. I was living in a Motel 6 on Bill McDonald Parkway here in Bellingham for a total of 4 or 5 days by myself with little to no social support because I've been out of state and away from Bellingham for so long. I remember being in my hotel room trying to think about what I need to do to help myself out of this situation that was so severe because I had never been homeless in my life and I had never been so isolated from family because I was unwilling to ask for help. And at that time period, I was trying to figure out a way to live my life without the medications. So um, during this time period in this hotel room, I decided to get out of my hotel room and walk to my car that's filled with all of my belongings at this time period. And I start driving to Lake Patton. And it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. And I get out of my car and I decide to walk around the lake. And this step for my health and my well-being was very therapeutic for me at the time because what that allowed me to do was really clear my mind by being in nature, by being embracing the act of physical walking and just being able to process everything that's been going on despite the uncertainties and the insecurities that I was struggling with at this time period. Another example that has been very, really eye-opening for me to see how important it is to do some type of exercise on a weekly basis in order to maintain my mental health. Back to when I was 19 years old, I got out of the psych ward for the first time, and after being in the psych ward for about 2 weeks total, and ended up living with my ex coworker Jason, and was living with him for about 6 months. And during this time period, I was very lost as well because of the fact that I was diagnosed with this bipolar disorder condition, and there were so many pieces that I had to fit into together in my life. So one afternoon, I decided to then I decided to then as tears were rolling down my face with depression and fear and sadness, as I was really trying to process my life, I lace up my running shoes and go outside and go for a run. And I had recently been in the hospital, and so my body felt very weak and very sore and very like weak in general. Like I just felt like I didn't have a lot of energy. But during this process, I want to paint the picture right now that I was able to tell myself, you can do this. You can work on yourself. You can get to a better place. And these are the thoughts that were running through my mind as I was emotionalizing this experience, this moment of uncertainty, this moment of feeling alone in isolation. And and that's where, as I've been able to reflect on these types of experience, these types of moments when I could have given up. I could have, just given up on my life, given up on myself, but instead I chose another path that took me towards one step in the right direction. And in a total time period of about 10 years now since I had this diagnosis, there has been many small steps. And those many small steps have been able to turn into larger things over time. And that is why I am filled with hope and inspiration in my life, so that I can literally live a happy and healthy life. And I feel that I'm called by God, as well as my own calling, to help serve other people who struggle with mental illness, mental health challenges, by giving them inspiration, hope, and a chance to really hear somebody who maybe can connect on certain levels of what you've gone through that I've gone through as well. Okay, so now the next point that I'm going to address is much related to medication and how this has been an important way that I've been able to create more stability in my life. I've been on medication for about 10 years, often pretty consistently since I was 19 years old. However, there's been certain time periods in my life when I wanted to get off of it because I feel like I wanted to try something new. Recently, and about 2 months ago, I was in a Applebee's restaurant with my friend Victor. And we were just having a discussion together about how things are going. And I say to Victor, Victor, things are going really, really well in my life. I'm really blessed with how the Lord is providing for me and how I'm continuing to work on myself and being disciplined and motivated. And my friend Victor then starts to ask me, maybe, do you think that you need the medication that you're on since you're doing so well? And then I processed what he's saying, and I'm like, well, I mean, maybe not, but I know that my track record, in the back of my mind, my track record hasn't been the greatest whenever I go off of medication. As a result, in this time period, I decided to work with my provider, my psychiatrist, to try to taper off of the medication that I was on in a period of like a month or month and a half. What this experience showed me was, as things continued to progress and I was tapering off of the medication that I was on, I was lowering off the medication, my mental health struggles and like symptoms seemed to kind of creep back up. Now, I'm not going to say that I want to say that everybody has their own decisions on how you want to support your life and your mental health. So I was faced with a very hard decision to make because of the fact that things were getting like so bad with my mental health. I was laying in bed and my roommates were walking in the hallway next to where I was trying to sleep, and I was starting to get very uncomfortable and paranoid in my life. And then I started to feel like this like wave of just pressure in my head that was kind of like building up in my life. Eventually, it was like a Sunday night, and these symptoms just were not going away. And I was laying in bed, and I was telling myself, something needs to change right now, or you're going to end up in the hospital or in the triage center, which could totally uproot things and cause another crisis or episode. So I bravely turned over to my desk where all of my medication pills were still sitting, and I took my medication. And about 20 to 30 minutes later, I finally was able to fall asleep. That next day, I realized and came to this understanding that I needed to go back onto medication because I care so much about my life, and medication seems to give me this source of stability and comfort that is necessary to support my bipolar disorder condition so that I can live a better life. I deserve to be happy and healthy, and it's my responsibility to take care of myself. And if that means that I have to take medications for the rest of my life, I will do that because it's going to help me to be able to interact with others in a happy and healthy way. It's going to allow things to just organically happen because I'm putting myself out there and being able to function in a healthy way with my mental health. The last thing on the topic of medication that has really shown me a better way of understanding is the importance of with the going back to the conversation that I had with my best friend at Applebee's, and his opinions are his opinions, and Victor certainly does know me very well, but Victor doesn't know me as much as I know myself. And so my self-advocacy responsibility is very important for me to trust myself in recognizing what works best for me. It doesn't matter what works best for Victor. It doesn't matter what works best for my provider or my therapist or anybody in my family. I have to trust my own guts and realize and determine with effort and through communication with others, determine what's the best procedure to supporting my mental health. The last point that I'm going to cover today is the importance of topics around connection with others. And I feel so proudly about this because I have struggled with this for many years in my 20s due to this condition, bipolar disorder, the traumas that I've experienced in my life, and all of these ongoing unhealthy communication habits and styles with others has really led me down a path of isolation for several years. And this really wasn't who I was when I was growing up as a kid. I was always a lively person. And so now I'm going to go straight into a specific example. March of 2024, I'm having dinner at a Denny's with my best friend Victor again. And I'm telling him, Victor, I really feel like I don't have a lot of friends right now. And yeah, I'm living in Bellingham and I'm trying to figure out how to have a better social support system of friendships and engagements with others. And I'm wondering how I should approach that. And he starts talking to me about his church community, the Bellingham Slavic Gospel Church that he's going to, and then one thing led to the another, and I then decided that I would try out going to one of the prayer services with him on a Tuesday night. So I walk into the prayer service, I sit down next to Victor, and I spiritually, in my faith is important to me. And so it was very comforting to be there, just to be in an environment with other followers of Christ, to, yeah, just to be together in community. And then I continued to show up to these prayer services on Tuesdays and Thursday nights just to get community. And I didn't know what I was getting into, what to expect or anything. And so then after a couple of weeks, I ended up finishing one of the prayer services, and I vividly remember my friend Ilona. I start talking to her and several other people, and then they start telling me about the youth service that happens on Friday nights, which is youth and young adults, so about 17 and up. And then she said, "Yeah, you should come on this Friday night." And I kind of was like, "Whoa, that sounds like a good opportunity to just connect with other people." And so as a result, I ended up showing up to the youth service and having these opportunities to connect with other people, young adults, my age, and just having these conversations and creating good friendships with other people. And I've been able to, over the past year, pretty consistently show up to these youth services where I've been able to create more of a healthier friendships and relationships with people. What that has taught me, if I wanted to have friendships, I had to show up and really learn to become more vulnerable with others. That point of vulnerability and being willing to show my true emotions and show what I truly am experiencing and the struggles that I have, the ups and downs on a consistent basis, that has proven to be so helpful in my recovery. Because I think that medications are, can be important for many people, including myself. But if you don't apply it to the actual bread and butter of the communications with other people, you're restricting your ability to expand to, and that's what I experienced, is that when I started to put myself out there more and more, despite feeling uncomfortable, despite feeling socially awkward at times, but still trying to put myself out there, eventually I started to realize that I am able to make friendships that are healthy and that are sustainable. And now, as I'm continuing to live my life present day, that experience of being able to create a community with a healthy environment of people is now helping me to continue to live my life in a healthy and sustainable way. So, in wrapping up, the things that I talked about today included the importance of sleep and how, for all of us as human beings, sleep is very important. But if you have a mental illness, maintaining and prioritizing your sleep is like on another in another level, because of how important your mind is when you're going through these challenges with your own symptoms. Number two is exercise. And I've learned that from my own experiences of how whenever I try and exercise on a frequent level, my confidence, my stability, my mental health just improves. The next thing I talked about was medications, and how medications has proven to be something that has helped me in my own stability long term. And I'm willing to accept that if I need to do that for the rest of my life in order to be healthy and sustainable, I'm going to do that. The next point was connection with others, and how important it is to be humble and vulnerable with other people if you want to make connections with people. Because if you're constantly putting on a face or not showing your true emotions with people, you're going to be miserable. And I've learned that from my own experiences, from the years of trial and error with trying to figure out how I could be this successful person, but I was lacking the humility. So I hope that this perspective has given you some type of nuggets of wisdom so that you can really change your life one step at a time. It doesn't have to be overnight. It just needs to be one step at a time, but being consistent. And the last thing is never give up. Thank you.
Now, Brandon, can you hear me?
Yes.
I got a question for you. During your manic phase, were you making any good decisions during that time, you think? Were you able to focus and function during that period? You know, I know it's hard going through that, but do you feel that you were able to make any good decisions within that 6-month period?
I think that I was trying to, but I was very lost and I didn't have any source of like a leadership role and that was helping to guide me. I was just kind of wandering and I got involved with the wrong crowd, the wrong source of people that wasn't helping me in the way that I needed the support.
Does anybody else have questions? This is a
Yeah.
question. Go ahead.
Are you a member of the Bellingham Clubhouse?
Yeah, I work here at the Wacom Clubhouse.
Okay, I was looking forward to hearing more about the clubhouse experience there, what that clubhouse is like.
Yeah, the clubhouse here is we have an office in Bellingham, and we have a small number of clubhouse members, but it's very helpful for what we're doing here to support others who struggle with mental illness. We do a lot of engaging activities like fishing, going on nature walks, doing support groups weekly, cooking lunches together. We're doing fundraising activities in July. So we have a lot of stuff that is giving others a chance to work on their recovery. And also having that chance to have that social activity is super helpful.
Thank you.
And one more thing, you brought up the medication, and I've worked in this field a long time, and I think that's a big thing, because a lot of people, they get medication squared away and they think I don't need them anymore. It's like, I only take it when I have a headache, but it's not like that. It's supposed to be a continual type of thing. So I had a lot of people that relapsed, went back, had to start over again because they got comfortable. Just like your friend said, people would tell them, hey man, you don't need that. Oh yeah, I don't. Couple of weeks later, they're back where they started from. So that was a good point to bring up because a lot of people think I'm fixed now, everything's back to normal, I won't never need this medication. And that's a doctor's determination with the member or the individual. And like you said, you have to be honest and tell them how you're feeling, or he's giving you the wrong medication for the thing. But I think that's a good thing to tell people. There's nothing wrong with taking medication. You would take medication if you had diabetes or sickle cell or something else. And if it can, I understand the not sleeping at night, because if you can't sleep, you can't regenerate. There's no possible way. So, no, that was very informative. Did anybody, Brecken?
You guys ever gotten involved or engaged with the Lumi tribe there in Whatcom for your clubhouse?
With the what?
The Lummi tribe, the
Um,
local tribe.
No, our clubhouse has not, no.
Anybody else got any questions? Go ahead, man.
So how did you get bipolar disorder?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with bipolar at the age of 19, and I returned home from studying abroad in Barcelona, Spain, in December of 2015. And then for about 6 months time period, I was in this like state of mind that turned into a manic episode for the first time ever. I was dealing with a lot of paranoia, depression, anxiety. I was isolating from others. My communication was like very unstable, and my parents were very concerned with me because I was living at home and trying to figure out my life, but I was in the midst of all this uncertainty of wanting to help other people. I wasn't even able to help myself. And so that's the reason why long story short, I ended up in the hospital for the first time in the psych ward. And then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder because of the instability with my mood.
Now, didn't they say that it's a chemical imbalance?
Yeah.
Genetic? Yeah. So it's nothing that you did. It's something that is just a chemical imbalance in your brain, and the medications help stabilize the
Yes.
situation. So it's not from, I don't know if you can get it from trauma. Maybe you can, maybe a head injury or something, it could promote bipolarism, but I don't know, do drugs help do that? Like hard drugs, would that prompt that, or did the doctor say it's just a chemical imbalance you're born with?
Well, my grandfather was also bipolar, so it's definitely hereditary based. And my mother is also dealt with depression in her life. So I think that kind of line has been a part of where, at 19, I had this break, this episode. And so now that's how it began.
How often do you exercise?
I would like to try. I try to do it 3 days a week, but that doesn't always happen because life gets around. Maybe I'm dealing with the depression, but what I've noticed is that if I'm doing 3 days a week, it's a sustainable approach for me. And what I would say for everybody else is really just find what works for you. Like maybe people want to lift weights, or maybe they just want to go for a walk. And if you do that and find what works best for your own body and your own mental health, you'll become happier.
Brandon, I want to thank you. That was a great presentation. Very informative, well put together. We appreciate it. These are great talks. After we're finished, we're going to email you the recording, so you got that.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or
I just want to say thank you again to yourself and the PHA Clubhouse.
Yes, yes, that's us, that's us.
Yeah, I really appreciate this opportunity, and I hope that what I was saying is giving you all nuggets of wisdom to continue to work on yourself.
And thank you. You got an open invitation to come down and visit us. And Brecca has something else.
Thank you for opening yourself up, for being vulnerable enough to share your story with us and trying to connect with us on a relatable level. I think it's really brave of you, and it takes a lot of energy and emotion, and I'm grateful that you were willing to share that with us today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, Becca already said what I was gonna say, but I appreciate it. Well, like she said, I feel that it took a lot of bravery because you're just putting your story out there for us, and then also allowing us to ask questions, which is very, it's very strong, and I appreciate that vulnerability.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, when you take care, call us anytime. We'll be around.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steve.
All right. Thank you. You take care now.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. And show me how it's in.
Oh, no.